Lost fire will rise.
Hello YouTubers and happy Halloween! So one of my Halloween traditions has been, for several years now, has been to go to the Rocky Horror Show. It's actually the stage play version. But what I recently saw commercials for another musical that was right up my alley, that was coming to a theater that's actually near where I now currently work. And I'm talking, of course, about Evil Dead the Musical. Now, if you're at all a fan of the Evil Dead movies, I absolutely loved this musical, and I absolutely love the movies. If you're at all a fan of the Evil Dead movies, it's definitely one I highly recommend. It was really funny. It was hilarious. You know, if you're not so much a fan of the movies, or if you're not a fan of the campiness of the movies, you probably wouldn't have liked this, because it really amped up the campy. But that's part of what made me love it. It was hilarious. The songs were actually pretty catchy. They weren't, they weren't like Phantom of the Opera good, which I'm a big fan of Phantom of the Opera, but they were pretty catchy. They were, the songs were really good. The actors were just hilarious. It was great. The guy who played Ash, I think he really had the mannerisms and the voice of Ash down. It was really funny. It's basically the story of the first two movies. Ash and his group of friends go into the cabin. They find the Book of the Dead, and Necronomicon Ex Mortis, and they wind up accidentally bringing life to the Deadites, the Kandarian demons, who, take their souls, try to take them all. So it was that basic story. If you're familiar with the first two movies, you'll know the story basically of the musical. The third movie, Army of Darkness, didn't really enter into it too much. Just the very end, where he's back on Earth, or I'm sorry, not Earth, but back in our current time, really was the only part. So, as I said, it's really funny. I definitely highly recommend it if you're a fan of the movies. Ash was like one of the best parts, but all the supporting characters were just great. In particular, reliable Jake, I thought, was one of the best new characters. He actually was in the movies, but wasn't quite developed as much in the movies as he is in the musical. And I think he was really funny. I think he was probably my favorite of the supporting characters. The best thing about this show, though, is if you sit within the first, in the theater actually that I was in, the Prince Musical Theater in Philadelphia, it's the first two actual rows, and then they actually have two removable rows that normally aren't there in front of those. So it's those first four rows, but any typical show, it's the first few set of rows. They have what's called the splatter zone. And the reason for that is that it's a very bloody stage play. And if you're within one of those rows, you might actually get splattered with blood. In fact, some of the people sitting just directly in front of me were literally drenched in the fake blood. I actually got to sit in the splatter zone. Unfortunately, I was in the last row of the splatter zone, so I ended up having the littlest bit of splatter, but it was still a lot of fun. So, as I said, definitely one I highly recommend. If you're a fan of the Evil Dead movies, I highly recommend, especially if you are a fan of the campiness and the goofiness of it. It's definitely one that I highly recommend. It's good for some Halloween fun. Thank you, YouTubers. Have a nice day. And happy Halloween.